It all started with a mysterious package, but ended with a curse that kills anyone who screams. The film opens by showing the life of a married couple, Jamie Ashen and Lisa Ashen, who appear to be living an ordinary day in their home. One day, while Jamie is fixing a broken sink pipe, with Lisa accompanying him, the calm atmosphere is suddenly interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Feeling confused since they are not expecting anyone, Jamie stops what he is doing and walks to the door to check. However, when he opens it, there is no one outside, only a fairly large package left right in front of their house. Curious, Jamie brings the package inside, and together with Lisa, they open it. Inside, they find a ventriloquist doll, a type of doll commonly used in ventriloquism performances. The package is clearly addressed to Jamie, but there is no information about the sender, which already feels strange from the beginning. Even so, Lisa seems relaxed, and even starts playing with the doll out of curiosity, joking that she is craving Chinese food for dinner. In that relaxed moment, Lisa suddenly remembers an old poem she used to hear when she was a child in her hometown. The poem talks about a mysterious woman named Mary Shaw, who has no children except her dolls, and warns that if you see her in your dreams, you must never scream. The memory passes quickly, and they put the doll aside without thinking too much about it. Lisa then asks Jamie to go out and buy dinner while she stays at home. When she is alone, Lisa brings the doll into the bedroom and lays it on the bed as if there is nothing to worry about. However, the atmosphere slowly begins to feel unsettling as strange things start to happen. The doll that was lying still suddenly changes position for no clear reason, making Lisa feel uneasy. Because the doll looks disturbing, she covers it with a cloth. The situation becomes even more unsettling when the loud music that was playing in the room suddenly disappears, replaced by an eerie silence. In that silence, Lisa hears faint laughter coming from the bedroom. With a mix of curiosity and fear, she goes inside to check the source of the sound and slowly approaches the covered doll. But just as she's about to remove the cloth, something unseen suddenly attacks her and throws her away. At the same time, Jamie, who has finished buying dinner, returns home without knowing what has happened. He walks in casually and heads straight to the kitchen to prepare their meal, thinking everything is fine. Not long after, he hears Lisa calling his name from the bedroom. Without hesitation, Jamie walks toward the sound, but his steps suddenly stop when he notices bloodstains in front of the bedroom door, followed by a faint, giggling sound coming from behind the cloth covering something inside the room. At first, Jamie thinks Lisa is just playing a prank on him, but when he gets closer and removes the cloth, he is shocked to find Lisa already dead, with her tongue violently torn out. Not long after the incident, the police arrive at the scene to investigate. Jamie is then questioned by a detective named Jim, who immediately suspects him because there are no signs that anyone else entered the house. During the interrogation, Jamie tries to explain that Lisa's death might be connected to the package containing the doll he received earlier. He even mentions a legend from his hometown that says ventriloquist dolls can be a bad omen and bring death to those around them. However, to Jim, this explanation sounds unreasonable and hard to believe. Due to the lack of solid evidence, Jamie is eventually allowed to go home, although he remains under police surveillance.
You can go, Ash. You're a free man for now.
After returning home, Jamie re-examines the mysterious package he received earlier, as if something had been overlooked. Driven by curiosity, he tears into the inner lining of the box and eventually finds a logo that reads Mary Shaw and Billy. The name immediately reminds him of Mary Shaw, a legendary ventriloquist from his hometown. In the past, Mary was known for always performing with her beloved doll named Billy, and from this, Jamie realizes that the doll he received is most likely the same Billy from that old story. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Jamie decides to return to his hometown, a small town called Ravens Fair, hoping to find answers to the strange events surrounding him. Upon arriving at his family home, he is greeted by Ella Ashen, a beautiful woman who turns out to be his father's young wife. Without wasting time, Jamie goes to see his father, who now looks very different from how he remembers, confined to a wheelchair due to a stroke. Since he has been away for so long, Jamie had no idea about his condition, which further shows how distant their relationship has been. Even so, his father assures him that he has changed and is no longer the same man he used to be. Jamie then explains the purpose of his visit and begins asking about an old poem his mother used to recite when he was a child, one that is connected to Mary Shaw. He tries to find out whether the poem is just a story or if it has any relation to what he is currently experiencing. However, Ella dismisses it as nothing more than a fairy tale, while his father explains that people in the town still strongly believe in myths and old legends. Unsatisfied with their answers, Jamie decides to focus first on arranging Lisa's funeral.
I'm not staying long. Got a funeral to prepare.
Jamie.
As part of the process, he visits Henry Walker, an older man who works as a funeral director. Henry explains that Lisa's body can likely be retrieved that night, once all the police paperwork is completed. Not wanting to be too involved, Jamie entrusts everything to Henry. While waiting, he checks into a motel and brings the doll Billy with him. As Jamie tries to rest, he suddenly hears someone calling his name, causing him to wake up in shock. When he opens his eyes, he finds Billy right in front of him, even though he had placed it somewhere else earlier. Not only that, from behind the curtain, he sees the shadow of an old woman resembling Mary Shaw. Panicking, Jamie quickly turns on the light, but the figure disappears without a trace. Elsewhere, Henry has brought Lisa's body to his home to prepare it for the funeral. When he opens the body bag, he is shocked by her condition and immediately documents it as part of his work.
No, it can't be.
Shortly after, he hears a sound coming from beneath the hallway in his house and discovers his wife, Marion Walker, hiding there. Marion appears terrified and believes that silence has arrived and that she will be safe as long as she stays hidden.
She won't find me down here.
I don't have time to play games. Come out of there and go to bed.
The silent time's here.
The next day, Lisa's funeral takes place. During the ceremony, Jamie briefly sees a woman in the distance before Marion approaches him and asks whether he has seen anything suspicious related to Lisa's death. Marion also begins reciting the poem about Mary Shaw again, but before she can finish, Henry interrupts and takes her away. Before leaving, Marion warns Jamie that he should bury the doll. Her warning makes Jamie even more curious, and he eventually notices a gravestone that turns out to be Mary Shaw's grave. Without hesitation, he returns to the motel to retrieve Billy and plans to bury it there. On the way to the cemetery, something feels off as the doll seems to occasionally glance at him. After arriving, Jamie finds a grave marked with the name Billy, but when he checks inside, the coffin is empty. He places the doll inside the empty coffin and closes it, even though he feels uneasy when he notices Billy's face seemingly turning toward him. After finishing, Jamie returns to the motel, hoping everything is finally over. However, things only become more confusing when he arrives and finds Billy already back in his room. Not long after, he learns that Detective Jim is the one who took the doll. Jim had secretly followed Jamie to the cemetery and assumed that burying the doll was an attempt to hide evidence. Jamie tries to explain that the doll originally came from that grave and that he was simply returning it to where it belonged. He also tells Jim about the legend of Mary Shaw being buried along with her collection of dolls. However, to Jim, it all sounds irrational. He even challenges Jamie, asking whether he truly believes that a ghost is responsible for Lisa's death. Jamie cannot be certain, but he is convinced that whoever sent the doll must be connected to what happened. Despite that, Jim sticks to logic and leaves, taking Billy with him as evidence.
Sleep tight.
The next morning, Jamie quietly sneaks into Jim's room, which happens to be right next to his. Without the detective knowing, Jamie manages to take the doll Billy back because he believes it is not just evidence, but the key to everything that has been happening to him. Without wasting any time, he immediately brings Billy to Henry Walker's house to seek a clearer explanation. When he arrives, Henry instantly recognizes the doll and confirms that Billy indeed belongs to Mary Shaw, a legendary ventriloquist he once watched perform when he was a child. From there, Henry begins to recount the events from the past that marked the beginning of the terror in Ravensfair. He remembers how Mary performed on stage carrying an empty box, then called out the name Billy. Unexpectedly, the doll was actually among the audience, right on the seat where young Henry was sitting. Mary then asked Henry as a child to bring Billy onto the stage, and the performance began. At that moment, Billy seemed almost alive and even thanked Henry, making the show even more captivating. Mary herself was known as an elderly woman who lived alone without a family, except for the doll she treated like her own children. However, the performance took a strange turn when a young boy named Michael Ashen, who was related to Jamie's family, suddenly disrupted the show. With a disrespectful attitude, Michael claimed that he could see Mary's lips moving, which meant the doll was not actually speaking, but it was Mary providing the voice. This made Mary visibly irritated, and she seemed to respond through Billy. But at that point, things became even more unusual because Billy appeared to have emotions of its own and began reacting in an unnatural way.
Where are you, Billy? Bringing him to me? Could you check under your seat?
Thank you, Henry. Makes me wanna...
Wonder what?
I can't
I
help
can
it.
see your lips moving.
Who said?
I did.
He thinks you're a dummy. That I'm doing your voice for you. What do you say to that, Billy?
But that can't be true. I'm as real as you are, and
Leave
I'll
him
show
alone.
you. We should show this boy just how real I am.
Who's the dummy?
Bring him up here.
A few weeks after that incident, Michael suddenly disappeared without a trace, and not long after, Mary was found dead. However, Henry never clearly explains who was responsible for her death. He continues his story by saying that his father, who worked as a funeral director at the time, received Mary's final request through her will. In that will, Mary asked for all of her dolls to be buried with her, totaling more than 100 dolls. She even requested that her body be treated like a doll before being buried. Driven by curiosity, young Henry secretly approaches Mary's coffin to see her body for himself. But when he climbs onto it, the coffin loses balance and falls, bringing him down with it. At that moment, young Henry sees Mary's body, which has been altered to resemble a doll. The situation becomes even more terrifying when he feels as if Mary is standing right in front of him, ready to attack. Fortunately, his father arrives just in time, and when they check again, Mary's body is still lying on the ground, as if it had never moved. Since that incident, Ravensfair has been haunted by a series of terrifying and mysterious events. Many residents have died under strange circumstances, and, most disturbingly, nearly all of the victims are found with their tongues removed, including Lisa. To support his story, Henry even shows photos of his own family members who suffered the same fate.
Your wife's posed in fantasy.
Hearing all of this, Jamie becomes convinced that what is happening cannot be explained by logic alone. He then decides to go to the old theater where Mary Shaw once performed, hoping to find answers. However, Henry tries to stop him and warns that Mary will not stop chasing anyone who mentions her name until she hears their scream. Despite the warning, Jamie insists on going because he wants to know who actually sent the doll to him. At the same time, Jim conducts his own investigation by going to Mary Shaw's grave and digging up several graves connected to her dolls. What he finds is shocking, as all the coffins he checks are empty.
Check it out, kids.
what I want to know.
Meanwhile, Jamie crosses over to the theater by boat. The building appears abandoned and long neglected. As he explores inside, he finds a chest containing a book that explains in detail how to create a perfect doll. Inside the book are also records of people who have gone missing, including Michael Ashen. Not long after, the atmosphere in the room suddenly turns completely silent, and through the reflection in a mirror, Jamie sees the figure of a corpse sitting motionless on a chair before it suddenly disappears. Realizing how dangerous the place is, Jamie decides to leave the theater immediately. The story then shifts back to Henry. Inside his house, he hears Marion talking to someone, but her tone sounds strange and filled with fear. The voice responding to her mentions that their family has revealed a secret and now must face the consequences. Feeling suspicious, Henry approaches the source of the voice, only to be shocked when he realizes that Marion is actually talking to the doll, Billy. Seeing this, Henry becomes furious and immediately takes the doll, intending to bury it again so that all the strange events will come to an end. However, before he can do that, he hears a noise coming from beneath the hallway of his house. Thinking it is Marion, Henry goes down to check. In the dark corridor, he keeps calling his wife's name, but the only thing he hears is faint, unclear groaning. The situation becomes even more terrifying when the door behind him suddenly slams shut on its own, trapping him inside. In a panic, Henry asks Marion to open the door, but instead, the figure of Mary appears right in front of him.
Marion, open the door.
Henry.
Overwhelmed by fear, Henry loses control and screams, sealing his fate as he is killed with his tongue violently removed. After leaving the theater earlier, Jamie returns to his father's house. He wants a clearer explanation about Mary Shaw, especially after discovering the name Michael Ashen in the book he found. Hearing this, his father finally reveals a story from the past that had been kept hidden. After Michael disappeared, the Ashen family, along with the townspeople, confronted Mary and accused her of kidnapping him, since Michael had previously embarrassed her during the performance. Even without solid evidence, they forced their accusation and carried out a cruel act by cutting out Mary's tongue, which ultimately led to her death. However, the story did not end there. After her death, Mary Shaw returned and began taking revenge on those who had wronged her. One by one, those involved met the same fate, dying with their tongues removed. Not only them, but even their families became victims as well. Jamie's father then admits that the reason he drove Jamie away in the past was to protect him from all of this. He hoped that by staying away, Jamie could escape the curse, although in the end it did not work, and Lisa still became a victim. Not wanting to remain in confusion any longer, Jamie decides to find a way to stop everything. However, before he can leave, Jim is already waiting outside the house and is even more convinced that Jamie is involved in all these events. Based on his investigation, all the dolls in the graves have disappeared, and the fact that Jamie took Billy from his room only strengthens his suspicion. Jim then intends to take Jamie to the police station for further questioning. In the middle of that situation, Ella suddenly tells them that Jamie has received a phone call from Henry. Henry asked Jamie to come to the theater because there is something he wants to show him. However, in reality, Henry is already dead, which means the call clearly did not come from him. Jamie immediately realizes that this is most likely connected to Mary Shaw, and he tries to convince Jim that all the answers can be found at the old theater. But Jim insists on following procedure, forcing Jamie to make a quick decision to run and head straight to his car. Without hesitation, Jim immediately chases after him. When they arrive at the theater, Jamie begins searching for Henry while calling out his name. Not long after, Jim catches up and points out that Henry is most likely not there. He explains that there are only 2 boats that can be used to reach the theater, and both have already been used by the 2 of them. This raises a big question about how Henry could have gotten there in the first place. Before they can figure it out, they suddenly hear the sound of someone singing. They follow the sound until they reach a room. Inside, Jim finds a doll, and because he is already fed up with everything related to dolls, he throws it aside. The throw accidentally knocks down a curtain behind it, revealing something that had been hidden all along. Behind the curtain, all of Mary Shaw's doll collection is neatly arranged, as if everything has been gathered in one place. However, out of all the dolls, one is missing, which is Billy. Not only that, they also discover the body of a young boy stored there, which can be confirmed to be Michael Ashen, who had been missing for a long time. The atmosphere becomes even more unnatural when all the dolls inside the cabinet suddenly turn their heads in the same direction. Their gaze then fixes on a clown doll sitting quietly on a rocking chair. As Jamie begins to realize that something is wrong, he calls out the name Mary Shaw. The rocking chair where the clown doll is sitting slowly comes to a stop. Not long after, Mary appears from the shadows, revealing that everything that has happened is part of the revenge she has long planned against those who once wronged her. Still confused, Jamie demands to know why Lisa also became a victim, and Mary reveals a truth that hits him even harder. She explains that Lisa carried the bloodline of the Ashen family, meaning she was pregnant with Jamie's child at the time. In other words, Mary's revenge does not stop with the previous generation, but continues on to their descendants. The situation quickly turns chaotic when Jim tries to fight back by firing his gun at her. However, this only triggers a more dangerous reaction as the surrounding dolls begin to move one by one. Realizing that Mary can shift and hide within the dolls, they try to destroy everything before it is too late. Jamie quickly throws a light source toward the pile of dolls, causing a fire to spread and engulf the entire room. In the chaos, they attempt to escape, but Jim is struck by misfortune when he falls and instinctively screams, which seals his fate as the next victim. Meanwhile, Jamie, who almost suffers the same fate, manages to hold back his scream, even after falling, and eventually escapes the building. Although he makes it out, Jamie realizes that everything is not over yet. He remembers that there is still one doll that has not been destroyed, Billy. Without wasting time, he heads to Henry's house, since that is where he last left the doll. Upon arriving, he finds Marion still grieving over Henry's death. Marion tells him that Jamie's father had come earlier and taken Billy from the house. Hearing this, Jamie immediately feels that something is not right. He knows very well that his father has been confined to a wheelchair, making it impossible for him to come there on his own. His suspicion grows stronger, and he decides to return to his father's house to find out the truth. As expected, he finds Billy already there. Before he can fully understand what is happening, Mary Shaw appears once again, forcing him to act quickly. Jamie immediately grabs the doll and throws it into the fireplace, causing Mary to react in pain before finally disappearing. As Jamie approaches his father, he begins to notice that something is not right with his body. When he looks closer, he sees that there is a hole in his father's back, with a wooden rod inserted inside to support his body and keep it upright. At that moment, Jamie finally realizes that his father has been dead for a long time and has only been used like a puppet. Behind all of this, Ella has been the one controlling everything. With her ventriloquist skills, she manipulates his father's body from behind using the rod, creating the illusion that he is still alive and able to speak. Everything that once seemed normal turns out to be nothing more than a carefully crafted manipulation. This truth becomes even clearer when Jamie recalls the book he found in the theater about how to create a perfect doll. The figure illustrated in the book looks strikingly similar to Ella, leading him to the conclusion that she is not human, but a perfect doll created by Mary Shaw as part of her plan. Unlike the other dolls, Ella was made with a much higher level of perfection, allowing her to imitate a human almost flawlessly. This is what makes Ella the ideal vessel for Mary Shaw. As shown before, Mary has the ability to move between and control her dolls, but through Ella, she gains something far more powerful. This perfect body allows Mary to move freely, unlike ordinary dolls, as if she has truly returned to life in human form. Through this, Mary is able to carry out her revenge more effectively, using Ella as her main medium to approach and destroy the Ashen bloodline. It is then revealed that the one who sent the doll Billy to Jamie's house was Ella, who had been controlled by Mary Shaw all along. None of it was a coincidence, as Mary knew that Lisa was carrying Jamie's child, making the doll the starting point of the revenge plan she had carefully set in motion from the very beginning. In the end, after killing Jamie, Mary closes her book, marking the end of the story.